Welcome back. You're watching Newsx. We're in the run up to the budget speech of the finance minister for 2026 coming up very shortly. And one big thing that has already happened is, and it's visually anecdotal. There you go on your screens. Notice the difference between the left and the right. Left was last year, budget 2025, photo op, and this is what's happening, about to happen. And you will see dramatically that the location has changed, because no longer are we operating in North Block in the finance ministry as was since before independent India. We have shifted to the Kartavya Bhavan, which is the new central secretariat in New Delhi. So literally the building from which the finance minister will be departing, which is the new finance ministry, to the building that she will be going to, which is the new parliament, fundamentally different. And it is a marked reminder of the very rapid infrastructural change. It's not all done yet, but we are seeing stuff happening that hasn't happened quite literally in decades. So the transition is not complete, but very shortly North Block is earmarked to become a museum open to the public. So you and I will be able to walk in to see historical galleries, and a more efficient workplace will be coming our way. And let me just absorb that with Sumit Peer for a quick second. Sumit, I know this is I'm trying to be whimsical and anecdotal here, but pictures do speak 1,000 words.
But Rishabh ji, you're absolutely right, because if you look at this, Modi ji once said कि गुलामी की हर निशानी को मिटाना है. So that is, it's a part of the process which is happening. And overall, if we look at the infrastructure, not in Delhi, around the India, last 4 or 5 years, every year there has been a 15% spent on the infrastructure of India, increase from the last year. And in last 4 or 5 years, the spend on infrastructure has almost doubled in the Modi Sarkar. The biggest ever infrastructure spend has happened, and that infrastructure is now visible in every nook and corner of India. Moreover, you will see a new building, a new bridge, a new airport, a new railway station, a new medical college. Something on that side is coming up pretty much everywhere. And so Delhi has also got a new kind of a revamp. If you look at the Kartavya path, you look at the Kartavya Bhavan, which we were rightly saying. So these things are all which are basically made in India. I mean, made in modern India. We have not inherited this from British. The new parliament, for that matter, there was a lot of hue and cry. Why do we need that? But nobody seems to be talking that. So slowly, India is moving to a place and creating an image of its own, creating an identity and a standard which is done in independent India by a powerful and a resilient India. So India is sending a message that India has lived through the past, which we have no problem on, but new India under the current leadership wants to make a mark at the international stage. I mean, that is where the vision seems to be, that is where the mission seems to be, and that is where the budget, I think, is going to be. And what I'll be expecting is, again, the infrastructure push will continue, because what Nirmala ji said in the economic survey is that mere infrastructure push created, these 60 million jobs. So a lot of jobs.
No, but I know I'm being parochial, okay, but I would remember, Sumit would remember, know this, and let's be honest, I'm not speaking from them, but everybody else sitting in this conversation with me would be aware of this. There would be a whole host of staff in all these ministries who would walk in the morning, sign their attendance in the register, walk straight back outside, sit in the lawn in nice winter sunshine, which is what is going to happen today, and be playing cards. Okay, everybody smiling slightly. Even those who probably deal with government regularly wouldn't want to say it on television for show, but that's the truism. Welcome to the world of biometric attendance. To exit the building, you have to now scan out. So that doesn't mean everything changes. The sheer fact of all the ministries being in just 2 buildings now, not dotted all over this Bhavan and that Bhavan and here and there and everywhere, just being in 2 ministries with state-of-the-art infrastructure, meeting rooms, internet facilities. I mean, this part of Delhi was built 30 years before independence. Okay, I mean, 1913, when all these buildings were being constructed. Everything else, the lifts, the HVAC systems, the internet systems, the security systems, CCTV cameras, everything else had to then be sellotaped on top. Completely inefficient, very pretty places, very nice, but completely inefficient for the work of modern government. And that's a fundamental change, and it's very visually being told here. The old parliament, again, very nostalgic. If you've been the parliamentary reporter for 30 years, of course you're nostalgic about it. But it was falling apart. Let's accept it. So something fundamental is changing, and the entire map of the Prime Minister's office is next. The Prime Minister's residence and the Prime Minister's office are going to be promulgated into one entity. So that practically means more efficiency, less travel times, less road blockades for the PM's cavalcade just to go from LKM to South Block. All these practicalities make a difference in running a corporate entity, running it efficiently, running it well. All the things that everybody has to deal with, Sumit has to deal with, I have to deal with, is managing human resources, making sure everybody comes on time, that attendances are calculated, leaves are automated, HR systems are not registers, entry is access restricted. Changing. You can see it happening. Completely brand spanking new building at the Kartavya Bhavan, telling that story. Okay, let's pick up the rough and tumble of it. I want to get into perspective before I discuss budgetary expectations, because we're not expecting something dramatic. The reason we don't expect something dramatic is a good thing, because the budgetary exercises are about the devil in the detail, about themes, because a lot of the information is shared with us. The policy making happens all year around, as it should. So let me get Navneet Damani into this conversation. Navneet ji, before I get into the budget per se, let us put in place the larger picture. India GDP seems to be doing fine, inflation seems to be doing fine, forex reserves are pretty good at $700 billion, fiscal deficit seems to be under control, everything seems to be under control. We are looking good as a country. But most of us can't figure out that how are the gold prices where they are, what the heck is happening in the silver markets, okay, where it's doubling then crashing. We've seen a $400 billion loss in Microsoft shares yesterday night. Many people are saying AI bubble is a real thing. There is then I'm not even mentioning the Trump tariffs and the chaos that engenders. Is there a global risk? What is going on?
Well, thank you for having me on the show. And until Thursday, nobody was talking about these kind of risks, these kind of parameters, or these kind of fluctuation. Every alternate day, you were seeing gold and silver prices go by about 3% to 6%. People were making money, and everybody was comfortable. Suddenly, handbrakes were pulled in a fast-speeding car Thursday evening, and Thursday and Friday, you saw a carnage across commodities, not only just gold and silver, but across industrial metals as well. So something which has gone up vertically of 300% without any reasonable correction, then at least some point in time, velocity or gravity will come into picture, and that is exactly what happened in silver. It corrected about 32 odd percent from peak, and nothing much has changed in the fundamental. Nothing changed from 3 lakh to 4 lakh, and from 4 lakh back to 3 lakh. On the ground level, nothing much has changed. The only thing that has changed is Fed has announced a new chief guard, and secondly, the biggest thing that China has started to re-export silver, which they were holding for a brief period of time. Overall, it looks like the world is, or probably India is now accustomed to higher prices. They've got absorbed to higher prices. We imported about 5,000 tons of silver in 2025. But in 2024-25 and 2025-26 number is estimated to be upwards of 8,000 tons. Mind you, that point in time, silver was $20, and this time the average could be about $60-65.
Okay.
So prices have gone.
Okay,
3x.
I'm sorry to interrupt you. We have breaking news coming in the context, and this is interesting because it's happening just a couple of hours before the budget speech. Yes, it's Donald J. Trump. And what's he had to say? Let me quote this. US President Donald J. Trump says, and I'm quoting, "China is welcome to come in and make a great deal on oil. We've already made a deal. India is coming in, and they are going to be buying Venezuelan oil as opposed to buying it from Iran." So we've already made the concept of the deal. Now we are discussing commodity prices, and the reason, ladies and gentlemen, gold is spiking the way it has is because global central banks, not you and me, not mummy papa, not dadu dadi, have not doubled and tripled the gold prices. Let's listen into what Donald Trump has to say. Then I'm going to pick Navneetji's mind on this.
For a short period of time.
Sir, do you think China's going to get their money back from all the money they lent to Venezuela for oil?
I don't know anything about that, but I'll tell you what, China is welcome to come in and would make a great deal on oil. You know, we welcome China. We've already made a deal. India is coming in, and they're going to be buying Venezuelan oil as opposed to buying it from Iran. So we've already made that deal.
Okay, there you heard Donald J. Trump, and does he move the markets? Yes, we are at just under $70 a barrel for Brent crude. And let me get Navneetji back into the conversation into that context. Navneetji, let's pick on that subject point, oil first. $70 a barrel seems okay. Prices have been stable and in fact trending lower. That's generally good news for an oil importing economy. So in that segment of the global trade, is everything okay? In fact, perhaps good that Donald Trump has done what he's done in Venezuela?
Well, absolutely, it's a positive sentiment or positive step towards getting oil back on shore. Primarily, we were hit hard because of massive imports of gold and silver. But to saving grace, oil prices were down 17-18 points in the previous year. Start of this year, we've seen a couple of issues with Venezuela, then Iran, and prices have moved up by 10% in the last 20-25 days as we speak. So typically any oil which is coming at a cheaper rate, which was predominantly coming from Russia, could now start to come from Venezuela or other parts of the world, will be a welcome move because we are largely an import driven economy, and this could kind of balance the current account deficit at this point in time.
So let me put these things into context. The global petrodollar economy, the base price is Brent crude, currently just under $70 a barrel. Now, we don't know the exact figures per barrel, but I can safely tell you that the Russian oil that was being procured, not only by us, but by a lot of countries, including the gas, which is still being procured by the European Union, was happening at a deep discount to the Brent crude rate. So it was much cheaper. I am also drawing an assumption that the Iranian oil, which whatever amounts were being imported, it's not zero, was also much cheaper than the Brent crude rate. So India was getting a good deal over here. Now Donald Trump is saying that they are offering us a deal on Venezuelan oil and we've accepted. Whether we have or not, I don't know, because I have to take what Donald Trump says with a pinch of salt given what's been going on. But yes, oil shock in the market doesn't seem to be the worrying aspect. But there is a worrying aspect, Navneetji, and it's related to gold prices, because the global wisdom seems to be that a fundamental reshift is happening, that central banks, including ours, are exiting US bonds, US treasuries, and instead procuring gold, and not only procuring gold, physically shifting gold into sovereign territories. That's a huge change that we've never seen in our lifetime, sir. Is that a worrying sign or is that a healthy sign?
Well, absolutely. Since the last couple of years, or ever since President Trump is on the hot seat, we've seen time and again that there is a tactical shift from US dollar, from US treasury bonds towards hard asset, which could help you in terms of inflationary concerns and probably in terms of geopolitical concerns. Today, Russia has been able to fight the war that it has been fighting because they've built a lot of ammunition over the last 10 years regards to having a lot of gold in their books. China also similarly has bought a lot of gold in their bank treasury. India typically has reasonable amount of gold in the treasury, but we've been one of the largest importer of gold, and that is the Indian women which is buying gold. It is not the central banks which are buying gold. Whatever shift we are seeing from abroad to India is typically our gold, our Indian dominated gold, lying in the vaults of UK, which has been gradually getting migrated to India. It's not a fresh purchase that we're talking about. It's a already existing purchase many years back, where we were not competent enough to keep our gold safe, and it was lying in UK vaults, now getting back shifted to India. So from that perspective, gold prices going higher is definitely a concern as well as a boon for India, because we've been one of the largest importers for many years now. So we have a reasonable war chest in terms of gold reserves. But definitely it is impacting our current account deficit, our balance
Okay,
of
but
payment.
are we heading, sir? Are we heading, as many people suspect, that in this de-dollarification, which isn't going to happen next year, it's not going to happen in the next 2 years, it's only going to be happening gradually, but are we heading into a place where our foreign exchange reserves, we would prefer, are backed by solid gold, not necessarily by dollars?
Well, Japan has done that in the last 1 year. China has done that. India, to an extent, have done that. That they've migrated from US Treasury bonds to India, because President Trump is arm twisting these nations. And what better alternate to move away from their currency, their hard-earned assets towards something like gold and something like silver, which is actually having a currency exchange value across the globe. So that has been the trend for the last 6 months. And that will continue to be the dominating trend for the next few years as well.
Okay, so just hold your thought. Now, Sumit, let me get you in on this, because whether we like it or not, okay, I'm in fact very grateful to Donald Trump, because it is thanks to Donald Trump that India and Europe now have an FTA. It wasn't going to happen. 2 decades we've been negotiating it, because let me be honest, the Europeans were never interested in the FTA. Okay. European attitudes have dramatically changed. British attitudes have dramatically changed, and Donald Trump is to thank for that across the board. And what the stunt on Greenland and what happened in Davos was that last, if anybody had any doubts, that was it. So all the FTAs have happened thanks to him. But Sumit, I have a fundamental question. We are now in the middle of the most dramatic global financial war. It's already started with the de-dollarification. The world system as we know it, established in Bretton Woods immediately after the Second World War in 1949, is going through a fundamental reset. Now, can we sit here and think that this fundamental reset is going to happen smoothly and no issues are going to take place and none of those issues are going to burn us?
I think, Rishabh, the first and important aspect is, we are being slowly gearing up for that. The reset is evident, it is going to happen. Now, if you look at, for example, in BRICS, India has proposed an alternate local currency system through a digital currency, through digital rupee, digital yuan, and everybody's digital currency. We are not talking of an alternate BRICS currency, but we are talking of a mutually settling mechanism with our digital currencies that Bharat is taking the lead on, India is taking the lead on. When this transition happens, I'll quote Donald Trump, he was very clear, he will not let the dollar dominance go, and they will go to any extent to stop that, because look at the cumulative debt, look at how they have been kind of ruling the world with this dollar dominance. Still 70% of the reserves in the world are in dollars. Around 70% of the international trade still happens in dollars. Yes, the India local currencies have come up. India is trying to do a lot of business in the local currency. That is mitigating the risk, because if you look at the world, it's highly leveraged. $315 trillion of debt is the global debt, at $110 trillion of GDP. Now, all this debt is in US dollars. So if the American monetization policy of the dollar shakes, it has the capability as on today to shake the financial systems of the entire world. So while you do this transition, you have to do it very slowly, very smoothly, and make sure that, we are not the eventual casualty. Because when you hold $700 billion of foreign exchange reserves, which are, I think, number 4th in the world today, so you are not the person who wants to, for the de-dollarization or anything to happen. You are the people who want these transitions to happen smoothly. And I'll quote Dr. Jaishankar. He went to US and he clearly said, we are not interested in a BRICS currency, or we are not interested in de-dollarization. But yes, India is pushing more of its local currency. India is doing a more of local trading and with its own currency, and with the opening of
that's sovereign security, and that lesson has been learned. And if you needed a lesson, it was learned immediately by Russia, that if you held monies in dollars, the Americans could wake up one fine day and say, we seize the money. Okay?
Correct.
The $300 billion, they just said, sorry, bank account closed. If your gold, you owned it, but it was lying in somebody else's, in this case, in a bank account in London, and the reason it's put in London because the argument was that it's held there, then it's easier to trade, it's easier to leverage, it's easier to monetize against. But then they can say, no, sorry, this is now our gold. We are seizing it until we decide to. So it's weaponization on the financial systems. all the international transactions, every one of them, whether they are government or you and I, happen through two servers. One is in North America and one is in Brussels. It's called SWIFT, okay, SWIFT. There are only two SWIFT servers. So all the money transactions happen through these two SWIFT servers. And then all the transactions that you and I do were happening either through Visa or MasterCard with a couple of other companies, American Express, others, but mostly Visa and MasterCard. Now you got RuPay, okay. So your transactions don't go through American servers if you're on RuPay card. These are major pivotal changes here that are taking place, and that is more about security and diversification, practicality, sovereignty than perhaps anything that we will see tangibly change. But there is a global context here. So let me put that context and put that to Gaurav Agarwal. Gaurav Agarwal, one other thematic, I mentioned this when we started this conversation. If you look at the US markets, currently stable, Nasdaq is pretty okay. But Microsoft down $400 billion in a single day of trading. The assumption is that there is some bubble which is formed in the US. Are you concerned?
Of course, see, we are a economy that we are being obviously in the world. So obviously, it is a major concern for the Indian economy. But I don't see that's a long-term pressure which would be there, and there will be certain checks which will be coming up. And I think it is a short-term pressure which is building up, and it should be rectified in the going months to come ahead. So that is what I can believe, that the Indian market will, with a good, as you already said, with a good performance we are doing. So Indian market is obviously as of now being impacted, but in the long term, I don't think there are long-term pressures.
So you're not expecting any shock. You're not expecting a dot-com bubble burst
yes,
or a 2008
shock,
financial crisis. You're not expecting any shock right now.
I don't think so, because our Indian economy is strong enough to take all these shocks. We have already taken these shocks, but as of long term, I don't see that there will be any pressure.
No, I'm not. Yeah, but in the long term, we are all okay. But also in the long term, as the aphorism goes, we're all dead. So we have to think about this year. I've lived through 2008. I was that person who, when you turn 21, then you start your 5,000 rupee EMI in a mutual fund, because that's the responsible thing to do. And saw the stock market boom all the way till 2008, and said the Indian GDP is going to do well. As it was then, we did grow at 7-8%, and then 2008 happened. And let's not kid ourselves. Everything crashed, including our stock markets, and it did damage our economy pretty badly. So is there a bubble? I can't predict it. Does it feel like one? Does doubling of gold prices feel like a bubble? Does tripling of silver prices feel like a bubble? Does $1.4 trillion of investment commitments by a single company, which produces nothing profitable, called OpenAI, feel like a bubble? Yes, it does. Does it feel like a bubble? Yes, it does. But I'm not an expert. Sumit, I'm going to argue the other side of the picture, and I'm going to play devil's advocate. Donald Trump can tell you that oil prices are not only stable but have come down since he took over as president. That the US markets are not only stable, they have been near their record highs. That US GDP growth is pretty good for a large economy. That we might think it's erratic and madness, but the economic indicators are telling us everything is going fine. Are you skeptical of that assessment?
Rishabhji, honestly, what you have been saying is absolutely right. You see gold prices going down, silver crashing by 36%. Now we are talking of these American companies who are talking of these $1.4 trillion of investment and all. My apprehension is there is some kind of a bubble which is there, and we are worried that when it bursts, what is the kind of impact it's going to be? Because whatever you say and do, the impact comes to India. It might be this much or this much, it will come to India, because at the end of the day, if you look at the American tech, there are only 10 companies. गिनती की 10 companies which are controlling the American stock exchange. The up and down of the stock exchange is done by these 10 companies mainly. And American tech and American arms are the only thing which they have left. Now they've got the oil, which is good for them. But at the overall level, looking at the volatility of the market and looking how the things are changing, So by the time your FTAs are all in place, by the time we kind of get more secured, the risk on the economy fundamentally increases. The risk on the liquidity in the market fundamentally increases.
No. So in that case, Donald Trump is absolutely right.